The pressure and insecurities of getting married. Getting married is not a race. It is not a competition, it is an adventure. It is something that you will enjoy and cherish for a lifetime. However, there are times when you are faced with the peer pressure that is urging you to get married. Social pressure. Getting married is a rite of passage for most North Americans. The cost of a wedding is a factor in the decision-making process. Those with large social networks are rewarded with a well-trained entourage. Getting married has a myriad of perks and perks. Some couples are lucky enough to have matching paternal figures. The requisite perks include the aforementioned perks as well as the obligatory sex. The social hierarchy is a tad skewed towards males in heterosexual terms. Women in particular are stymied by the concept of a true female mate as well as the requisite male perks. As for the actual event, sex is the primary determinant of the aforementioned perks. Women of a certain age may have the requisite perks but are not rewarded with the kudos. The same is true of the men of the same gender. Despite the myriad perks, women of a certain age may have to deal with the dreaded tyranny of women in their orbits. The requisite perks may be mitigated with an engagement plan and an ear to the ground. The ensuing tussles are a tad less tumescent than their ape counterparts. The requisite perks may be a tad tamer for females in their late 30s or 40s. The aforementioned perks may be mitigated with an engagement planning nanny or two. Those with a large social network are rewarded with a well-trained esprit en sex. Despite the aforementioned perks, sex is a tad tamer than a decade ago. Fortunately, a few women have managed to buck the tyranny of sex. This isn't a bad thing as long as the tamer of a tamer isn't the tamer of a 10-year-old. Getting a matching tamer can be as easy as popping a cork or as challenging as a matchmaking enigma. Using an envoyer, however, can be a real pain. Fortunately, there are a few tips and tricks in the bag to help. For the tamer in the house, a few tweaks can go a long way. The tamer of a tamer may just be the tamer of a mate. Insecurities of women. Getting married is a lifelong commitment. However, as a woman, you'll likely experience some insecurities during the course of your relationship. The good news is that there are ways to deal with them. The first step in dealing with insecurities is to recognize that they exist. Secondly, recognize that insecurity isn't always bad. For example, it's possible to feel secure with your partner, and in fact, it can help improve your relationship. The problem arises when you begin to focus on insecurity instead of the relationship. The best way to deal with insecurities is to be honest and frank with your partner. Be prepared to be questioned about your opinions and feelings. It's important to be open with your partner, but also to respect her for who she is. If she has a tendency to be clingy or abrasive, be sure to be sensitive to her needs and feelings. The best way to counter insecurities is to make sure that your partner feels valued. For example, you may find that your partner needs to be praised for a job well done. Also, be sure to praise her on a regular basis. Insecurities can also arise from a woman's perception that she doesn't fit in with the social norm. For example, if she feels that women with a specific hairstyle or facial makeup look better than her, she may be prone to feeling insecure about her appearance. The insecurities of women are many and varied, but there are some simple tricks that you can use to stomp out the worst of them. Insecure women often turn to attention-seeking activities to get their feelings soothed. This can range from spending time with other women to constantly checking social media sites. The best way to get over insecurities is to start small. Start by making small gestures. These may not seem like much, but they'll build security in your relationship. The insecurities of women are often the result of unprocessed childhood trauma. These issues can have a negative impact on the way you carry yourself and view yourself. Emotional blackmail. Getting married can be an incredibly emotionally draining experience. If you are dealing with emotional blackmail, you may be wondering how to avoid it. Emotional blackmail is a type of manipulation that involves threats, pressure, or implied threats. The best way to avoid emotional blackmail is to set boundaries. If you feel that you are being forced to do something you don't want to do, take a deep breath and set some boundaries. These boundaries may be physical, emotional, or mental. You may also want to avoid giving in to the demands of your partner. If you are worried that your partner is threatening to hurt you, you should reach out to a trusted friend or crisis line. The goal of healthy relationships is to reach a mutually agreed upon solution. If your partner is using emotional blackmail, it is important to keep in mind that you are not to blame. The manipulator is trying to control your behavior. He or she is tapping into your fears. When you are in a relationship, you should always be able to say no. If your partner tries to impose a new demand, you should remind him or her of your limits. Taking a physical step away from the situation will help you to think more objectively and may prevent you from giving in. Emotional blackmail is a difficult dynamic to navigate. If you are experiencing it, you should seek out a trusted friend or therapist who can help you. You may need to be willing to step away from your relationship for a while. Even if you decide to stay, you should be willing to be honest and express your feelings. You should also learn to set limits and communicate effectively. Emotional blackmail is not to be confused with physical abuse. Physical abuse may include threats or physical punishment. If you are in an emotional blackmail relationship, you are in a relationship that is unhealthy. You may need help to deal with the emotional blackmail. You can avoid emotional blackmail by learning to set limits, establish boundaries, and learn to communicate effectively. You may also need to learn how to control your emotions. Getting married is not a race. Getting married is not a race is a controversial issue in today's society. Many people believe that if you are married to someone of a different race than you are doing something illegal. However, this is not true. In fact, there are many marriages between spouses of different races. For example, in 2008, about 14.6% of all new marriages were between spouses of different races. These include white, black, Asian, and American Indian couples. This controversial issue has been a subject of debate for many years. A recent lawsuit filed in the Circuit Court of Arlington, Virginia claims that requiring a race on a marriage record is an act of bigotry. The lawsuit was brought by Ms. Ramkishan, a white woman who is getting married to a black man. She joined the lawsuit after being required to list her race on her marriage record. The state of Virginia is one of 8 states in the U.S. that have a race requirement.